Hey, everybody, we're back with another episode of In the Umpire's Clubhouse. The title says it, In the Umpire's Clubhouse. Today, we have a former Major League umpire, Ted Barrett, who I'm going to read some of his stuff here. It's amazing what
We
he.
don't have time.
Okay, Ted, you did a lot. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, he had that 18 inning World Series game,
Yeah.
and reading that stuff off would be longer than that 18.
But he was the only umpire to call two perfect games, so he's got
Hey,
that.
hey, hey, hey.
Oh, sorry,
We
Jimmy.
don't say perfect on this.
No hitters with no walks. How's that? Is that better, Jimmy?
There you go.
Ted, welcome to the show.
Yes, well, not a lot, but quite a few people asked me to come on. But this one I've been looking forward to because these are two of my favorite people here. So glad to be on with you guys.
Hey, Teddy, I understand Jimmy's been telling me about you. You're a motorcycle guy just like Jimmy.
Yeah, absolutely. I got my wife will tell you that I got too many in my garage, but and I'm also a sidecar pilot like Jimmy, so got that in common.
I
This,
got my
I
actually I got my enthusiasm back for bikes because of Ted Barrett. Um, I had gone a long, long time not imbibing in a motorcycle, and I talked to Teddy all the. Anytime that Teddy and I got together, it seemed like we talked a lot about baseball and bikes, and we had a lot in common. And Teddy was the one of the he probably was the main reason I ended up with a 2005 Harley with what we affectionately call the side hack, uh, and it's is because of him that I probably have one in my garage to this day. So
Well, I have to tell a little quick story. I have always just thought it would be so, I see a sidecar, you see it on Hogan's Heroes or whatever. I always thought it would be so cool to ride in a sidecar. And one time we had a meeting out in Phoenix. Teddy shows up with his bike in the sidecar. I said, Teddy, that is so cool. Can I go for a ride? Right? I get in that thing. I don't realize that you're basically almost laying down. Your feet are
yeah,
all the way up front. You got the engine right next to you, and you're blind on one side, and you're at low to the ground. I mean, we went around the block, and I think I wet my pants. I mean, I was I was I thought this was not anything like I thought it would be like to be in a sidecar. So I put that off my bucket list, and I thank you, Teddy. But I probably kind of like Kay, Jimmy. I probably won't be in the sidecar anytime soon.
no, Kay did her tour of duty in the sidecar, and that was about it. The funniest thing about Kay is we were driving down the street and we had stopped at Target. It was 104 degrees out, so the sidecar was just smoking hot. Like you said, Dale, it's right next to the engine. She had a bag of popcorn she bought at Target. We're driving down the street. She's got the helmet on and stuff like that. She's throwing popcorn up in the air, trying to catch it in her mouth. And we had people honking at us. It was so damn funny.
okay, back
Well,
to seriousness. I got a question for all three of you
That
guys.
was serious.
she was seriously trying to get popcorn.
Absolutely.
Kay, I apologize. I apologize. Jimmy, I apologize. Okay,
There you go.
back to the show. How's that? Is that better?
Better.
Okay. We'll
I'm
have more of
appeased.
Jimmy and his sidecar stories later on. But first, guys, this is going to be a can of worms. What do you guys think? I already know what Dale and Jimmy think. Ted, what do you think of the ABS system?
Wow, man, coming up
Welcome to the show.
for an hour on this, but it's funny when. And by the way, when I came up, I knew Dale before I got in the game. I went to a clinic, and that's how I got started. And then Jimmy, when I was coming up and down, even when I was in rookie ball, Jimmy and Dale, you guys were both in the American League when I was in extended spring. And Jimmy, you came in a couple times to do the
Yeah.
Firebird. You were already on the staff, but working in AAA, and you were just so kind enough to sit with us, the young extended spring guys, and man, I just learned a ton from you. And then working with both you guys in the big leagues was really cool part of my journey. But with the talking about the ABS, when we came up, the goal was to be consistent, to call strike zone from the first pitch to the last and be consistent. That's no longer the goal. The goal now is to be accurate. And so it's really hard for the guys working now. I'm glad I'm retired, as I'm sure you guys are too. but it's really, really difficult because the way they're graded, and you've got the box on TV is one measuring system. You've got the public media that comes out like scorecards and these third party things. And then you completely different is the grading that they get from the league. And so they're being graded on three different systems that are measuring three completely different outcomes. But as far as the ABS coming into play and being used right now in AAA and the Florida State League, they're doing the challenge system, but there's also days that they use the full ABS. I've watched a few of them, and it goes pretty well for the most part. Ball strike will come in the umpire's ear. He's just kind of the messenger that delivers it, but it's not ready for prime time yet. There's still a lot of glitches. If they were to bring it to the major leagues, it would not go well. But technology advances, and it could get to that point, but it's impossible. And I think they've all but admitted it's hard to get the height in real time, high pitch to pitch. And I don't think they're ever going to be able to do that. It's just almost impossible in real time to have a 3D zone call. And so,
right. And Teddy, a couple things on that, and you hit it too. It is a 3D zone. It's the strike zone is 3D, and obviously the plate is consistent, the width of the plate and all that, but the high low can change not only with each hitter but with each pitch, depending on how he approaches the ball. If you're bunting or if you're swinging away, and you can't get that in real time. We would get, when we were there, we would get our score the next day because they would have to have a technician go through and make sure the lines were correct, because that's kind of a key part of the strike zone. But I had a couple of questions, just because I've never seen an ABS system game, full game, where it's not a challenge system, it's ABS. And have you seen, for example, first and second, less than 2 outs, and a 3-2 pitch that the umpire calls strike three? The runners are running on the pitch. Excuse me, the umpire calls ball four, and the runners are running on the pitch. So the catcher doesn't throw it down, right? Now they challenge at strike three. Well, he never really had an opportunity to make a play on a stealing base runner because of it's fundamentally going to change the game in certain times. That's just part of the system, correct? Have you seen or heard any complaints about that, about how an ABS system challenge or just a pure system can change the game?
Yeah, in the challenge system, it can get awkward when you have that type of thing where the runners are going, people stealing, then it's overturned, and where do you place the runners? And
right.
Back. I'm amazed that if the players play, they kind of accept this. And the other amazing thing is all the changes they've thrown at umpires over the last few years. They've handled them so well, and it's almost seamless. I remember when replay came in, we thought, oh man, what if this happens? What if that happens? Speed up rules. And I don't think people realize how much the major league umpires, how they've made this implementation almost seamless. And without their efforts, without them helping to develop the systems of it, it wouldn't happen. So I'm hoping as they talk about the ABS, they get as much input from the umpires as they can, because they're the ones that have to enforce it.
You would hope so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing about that, Teddy, and you're absolutely right. The average fan watching a game, they have adapted so well, the major league staff, that it runs relatively smooth, and you don't see the bumps and glitches that could be. But the moment that if they weren't adapting so well, you would see it all over the place, right? And it, at times, even way before when Jimmy and I were on the field still and stuff. A lot of times, man, we make it look really easy and just smooth when it's anything but you immediately notice it when you don't have a big league staff that's working that can get caught up on some little thing or whatever. The fan, when it goes smooth, that's what they expect. When there's a glitch, that's when they say what's going on, and so many times on the big league level there isn't a glitch because these guys have adapted, like you said, and just it makes it look like almost just smooth and easy. And again, I'm not saying it is, but that's what it looks like a lot of times.
Yeah, when you're really good at something, you make it look easy.
Right.
I don't think the public appreciates how good the major league umpires are and
I
have for
agree.
a long time. And
That's why we're doing this show. People have no idea. They see the one bad call and oh my God, this guy sucks. He's horrible. But they don't realize he's got 99% of the other calls right. It's you're
Remember, Bob, we don't say bad call. We say a call that's misunderstood.
Yes.
A misunderstood call.
Well, the funny thing about it is the three of us, the four of us can sit here and we can talk about um being fans of the game also because we're now out of the game, quote unquote, even though you and Dale still do some things with baseball. Bob and I are, quote unquote, the fans now. But what really, really has always amazed me is that as much as they talk about rules, interpretations, and implementations of technology, they never come to us to ask us what we feel about it or even how can we make it better because there's a lot of ideas out there. And I can remember when technologies first started coming in, they refused to even talk to us about it.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys were at the meetings when Sandy Alderson dared to put on the mask and went behind the plate, and a pitching machine was throwing the ball or spitting the ball at the catcher. That was a strike every single time. And
At
Sandy
70 miles an
Alderson
hour.
and Sandy Alderson stood back and took off the mask and says, "That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Okay, go out there with Randy Johnson throwing the ball or Roger Clemens, and then you tell me how easy that is." But they just never have come to us to ask us. I mean, I think Larry Young was
first.
on. I think he was on the rules committee, and then Brian Gorman took over for him, right?
But Larry, when they finally got Larry on the committee, that was the first time they had an umpire on it. I mean,
Right,
for decades there was never an
right.
umpire on the rules committee. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right?
No, not at all.
Never has, never has.
But it's MLB. I mean, they shoot themselves in the foot time and time again. So, it is what it is, right, Dale?
That's what I say a lot. Yes, especially on a close play.
Yeah.
I think they are to that point, though. I think they are getting where they start to say, we should probably get some input of the umpires here because they're the ones that are going to have to do this. And you know, if you think about I retired after the 22 season. I think about everything that's been thrown on them since then with the pitch clock, with the trips, and then I was a part of that as we started counting trips, as we started to, even the lineup cards exchange is completely different now. They have to be on the lineup card, whereas before just the starters did, the substitutes. Um, Everything is so much more responsibility. They don't pay a crew chief enough money
Yeah,
to do what they're doing.
I agree. I
Well, I've been
agree.
saying that for years, but Teddy, I remember both Danny Isonia, Ron Culpa when this is when the pitch clock came in, so this was a few years ago, and I'd only been out a few years, but so much had changed. But I said, they said we're managing the game so much more now. We have to, you're counting trips. There's a time essence for everything. The batter coming up, the coming from the bullpen, the commercials, all that stuff. And you see when you're watching games, you see the base umpires. They all have, they're writing stuff down and keeping track of stuff. I mean, they said you're managing it so much more. It's not just pitches and plays and fair or foul and that kind of stuff. There's so much more that you have to do when the ball's dead between innings or whatever, just to make sure the timing is all there. And it's just a kind of a different animal than when certainly when Jimmy and I were there because we never saw the pitch clock. We never had that.
Yeah, you remember we would get together between innings and chat and laugh. As a way to blow off some steam and the pressure. And there's no more of that. They're
No.
they're intense and locked in from first pitch to the end. Luckily for them, the games seem to be going a lot quicker.
Well,
Yeah.
now that's the advantage of the.
Yeah,
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
There's no more character umpires in the game. They're all I don't want to this is going to come out wrong, but they're almost like robots now. There's no Dale Scott, some manager getting into it or Jimmy Joyce getting into it with somebody or even you, Ted, getting into it with somebody. There's no characters in the game anymore. And that's kind of sad because you always look forward, the umpires, you know, you were going to get a good show with Joe West, no matter what. You know, he was going to put on a show. You know, I know he was maligned by a lot of people, but he was a damn good umpire.
He was.
You know, same with Angel Hernandez.
Yeah.
Jimmy and Dale have said it time and time again. No more Angel Hernandez comments. It's dead horse. Leave the guy alone. He's retired. Just leave the guy alone. He was a lightning rod for all the major league umpires in the stands. You know, oh, he made a horrible call. Dude, you're not behind home plate. You're not catching. I was a catcher. I know what they're throwing. Like Dale said, I know how hard it is. It's not an easy gig, and being an umpire is a lot harder. You know,
Well, Angel just people were piling on. It was ridiculous. I
absolutely.
mean, Teddy, you worked with Angel.
Yeah, I worked with Angel quite a bit, and he's a fine man. He's a wonderful man.
Yep.
I always tell people I would try to set the record straight on Angel, one person at a time.
Right.
You know, as soon as you say you do, well, I'm a major league umpire. I'm a retired major league umpire. Oh, did you know Angel Hernandez? Yeah, I did. He's a wonderful person. And the funny thing is, Angel, when you looked at the metrics of even the measuring system, the ZE system, the plays missed, the overturns, he was always kind of middle of the pack. He wasn't. He was far from the worst. I think Angel early in his career, like a lot of us, he maybe didn't have the people skills that he ended up attaining. So I think a lot of people later in his career, you had people that moved into announcing jobs, former players, managing, coaching, and they still looked at Angel like he was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
He evolved as a person like we all.
And we all
Wonderful
know in this game, if you get labeled, it's tough to shake that label. If you get labeled a good label or a bad label, once you're labeled, it's really tough to shake it. I mean, and maybe early in your career, I know for me, I had some rough years, and I mean, I think the Red Sox fans were, ready to string me out, to almost every time they saw me walk on the field. But eventually, things change. But if you get labeled, even though there might have been a reason that label was put on you or whatever, that was long ago, and things have changed. You've gotten better. You have more experience, whatever. But it's tough to shake that label. I got so, and we all did. We got so sick of the piling on of Angel and Teddy. I'm the same way when I do something, and I didn't work with Angel much, I mean, but people would say some Angel joke, and I would kind of just say, hey, the same thing I'm saying now. That's not who he is, or who, both on and off the field, and it was just more of a blood sport with people after a while, and it just. It's just ridiculous. By the way, I just want to let everybody know that's watching on YouTube. Teddy's in a car. He's not strapped up in a seatbelt because this podcast is going to it's going to hit a guardrail or something.
Ted was scared coming on the show because he heard about Dale and Jimmy. So
he's in our I-10. He's in our I-10 studio.
Yeah, yes, he is.
Getting back just a little bit to we all belonged at one time to the one thing on Facebook, one of the sites on Facebook, and I finally got a wild hair, and I got tired of that. And they were a good group of people and everything like that, but they just got caught up in the syndrome too. Every day it became an umpire bashing site. And I just said, I can't be part of this site. And, to this day, I mean, I've talked to the administrator and stuff, and he even said, he goes, I agree with you. He goes, people have opinions about umpires and they're just not going to change. And I said, I agree. It's been like that for 200 years. So,
yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely. And to Bob's point, there's not, replay has kind of taken away the arguments.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bases or home runs, fair foul, fan interference, all that. There's no more arguing. If you don't go look at it, and if you don't want to look at it, then we're not going to talk about it. So it's just balls and strikes now. And if they go to the full ABS, they'll take that away. We may never see an argument again.
Well, we got check swings, baby.
Oh, that's right. Well, they experimented in the fall league.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, if they want to bring in full automation, which is really hard to do. but I call it the gaslighting of America when I get on those sites and read, Jimmy, because they assume that the technology that they have is perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I read comments and say, "Hey, we have the technology. Why not use it?"
Yeah.
We don't have the technology, but it's you try to explain the buffer zone to them, which was a 2-inch buffer zone, and they thought that was just like grace for us to make mistakes. Nope, it's because the technology had that margin of error. And now they've reduced it because the systems that they're using now is better and more accurate. So it's just so misunderstood. But it's something that Angel said once as I was lamenting about it after a game, and I was like, "Geez, Angel, it's so unfair the way you get treated." And he said, "Hey, it's not set up for men." And I was like, "Wow, that's a genius statement." And
Say that. Say that
again, Teddy.
Say that again because
one more time
you
'cause you
blipped
cut
out.
out.
Yeah.
Oh, so one night I was just saying, "Hey, Angel, it's not fair the way they treat you, and you do a really good job." And he said, "You know what, Ted? It's not set up for us to win."
He's right.
That's
Angel's right.
Yeah.
And he, for the most part, Angel handled it really, really, really well.
Yeah.
And it's like Dale said earlier, reputation is hard to work out of. It doesn't, if you have a certain reputation, I mean, there's guys that are still working that are under the same pressure and have the same reputation, but they're out there every night still doing the job. So
Yeah.
to switch gears just a little bit, I've often wanted to ask you and just never had the chance. Take us back just a little bit to the World Series game in Cleveland. My brother and my nephew were there. And just, you don't have to go through the whole game or anything like that, but what did it feel like walking off the field? Did you have a sense, something's going to change now, as this is not a good thing? And what was your mental outlook of coming back on the field and actually working that long behind the plate?
And you're talking about the rain delay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with me, no, the 18-inning World Series game was in LA. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah. I thought it was the Cubs game.
No, that was this was the 2018 World Series. I
see how out on touch I am. So
well, now we'll have to get that plate umpire and
okay, never mind. Never mind.
That was the John Hirschbeck crew chief when he pulled
That's
him
right.
up. Yeah. No, my game was it was game 3 of the 2018 World Series of the Red Sox and Dodgers. And we had the first 2 games in Boston, and they went up 2-0, and then we came to LA. It was a 5:00 start. Yeah, and I walked off the field about 1 a.m. So
what was the official game time of that?
7 hours and I think it was like 7 hours and 29 minutes.
Wow.
Well, you kept it under 7:30, and I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You're talking to a Red Sox fan here, and my wife fell asleep on the couch for that game where I'm watching it and she's sleeping. And finally it ended, and we're like, geez, you were drained after the game because it was, back and forth, and it was a draining game. But of course, the Red Sox went on to win and made us all happy.
Okay, Mr. Red Sox, I know.
It's hard enough to go out there and be right for 3 hours.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you imagine what it's like to go out there and be right for 7.5 hours?
The ABS would have quit.
Absolutely, it would have blew up.
Yeah. I don't think they had enough beer in the.
They would have had to reboot
the
around
game.
the 15th inning. I think it was a reboot. But Teddy, though, my longest game was 6.5 hours, 19 innings. But my experience in that, probably from about the 13th inning, somewhere in there, I was just numb. It was almost like in my legs, it was almost like I was just on autopilot. Just, I was in a different world because, you, and then you have, I don't know, I don't remember the details of yours, but if you have those teaser innings where they'll score in the top of the inning, the top of the 15th, you go, okay, there might be a chance this is it. And of course, then they tie it and you go, oh, son of a.
Well, with I think, they didn't score until Max Muncy hit a walk-off in the 18th. So
that was it.
And here's the thing that umpires will appreciate. I knew in the back of my mind that this was the last game of my season, and I was going to have a long rest coming up. The ones that hurt, yeah, the ones that hurt are the 15, 16 inning ones in June. And, and you're going to have to turn around and do it again in a couple days. At least this one, I was like, just get through this, and then we get a couple months off. And that was mentally, that helped a lot.
You are so true. It's funny you say that, Teddy, because I did that when I had a playoff plate game, and I knew that no matter what, this was the last game, and it was either not going well or going really slow or something. I'd always say, "This is the last one, dude.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have to do this again for a few months."
Let's get through it. And I almost made it the whole game without going to the bathroom, but about the 14th inning, I snuck down to the
that's
to the Dodgers. And I cut in the line too. I was like, "Hey, boys,
Well, I would think.
gotta get back out there." And you get 3 minutes between innings during the postseason, as you guys know, so that helped.
Well, here we were watching the Blues and the Winnipeg Jets last night,
Yeah,
and these guys, you were talking about fatigue. You go into overtime in the Stanley Cup playoffs. First period they're starting to get gas. By the second period, these guys are so winded. I mean, the play is a lot slower, and you feel bad for the referees because they don't get to sit down. They're on the ice the whole 20 minutes or
Those
longer.
guys work their rear ends off,
They
man.
absolutely do. And it's the wherewithal that you guys still went on to do your job is, like 17, 18 innings in a World Series game, pressure packed. That's amazing that you guys still came through with flying colors and you didn't like lop off somebody's head at the plate for, just any reason,
Yeah, it's one of those things, and it's cliche, but as Jimmy and Dale know, you just take one pitch at a time.
You really do.
Anything else,
Absolutely.
and it's the next pitch, and you get a pitch that, oh man, did I get that right? Block it out.
Right.
Ed Montague used to say, press the reset button and just keep pressing on.
That's all you can do. It's a shortstop blows a double play ball. You better get ready because the next one's coming.
Yeah.
It's like with us. I mean, if you right or wrong, if your question, it's a close pitch, whatever. Well, guess what? Here comes another one. So you better get going. Teddy, I don't know if maybe people that are listening, watching, know or not, but you used to box.
Yeah, that was my life before umpiring. Actually, a little bit while I was umpiring too, but. I was a decent amateur fighter, and at one point I moved to Las Vegas, and my dad was a big fan of mine, big supporter, of all my sports. He was a football guy, so he loved me playing football and basketball and baseball. He wasn't crazy about me boxing, and so I had started doing some. When I met you first, Dale, I was playing football at Cal State Hayward, and started umpiring for money. And met a couple guys who were in the minor leagues, and they said, you should go to umpire school and give that a try. Well, I said, yeah, I might. I'll keep that in mind. Then I was in Vegas boxing, and my dad said, hey, the school's in January. I'll pay if you want to go. And I was in Vegas getting my butt kicked pretty regularly. So 5 weeks in Florida, I could always come back to this. But then I went to Florida, and I ended up getting a job, right? And just like you guys, then it's, all right, well, let's give this a try, see what happens.
Right.
And luckily enough for the three of us, it went until we had a nice major league career.
Well, just a quick. I mean, you sparred with who? Some of the names.
Tyson, didn't you?
Tyson,
yeah,
I thought. Yeah.
Briefly. But George Foreman, Evander Holyfield.
Does he still have his ear?
the ear was intact before I got there. Yeah, that was.
Well, that's a pressing question.
Oh, I know it is.
Just checking.
Did you ask Mike Tyson if he had some ketchup with that ear or salt and pepper or what?
More of a mayonnaise guy. So
oh, geez.
But before you went to umpire school, you came to one of our clinics, correct?
Yeah. So when I was there at Hayward playing football, I went to the clinic in El Cerrito, California.
El Cerrito.
Ron Barnes, his group. I'll tell the story real quick. My dad told me, he said, when you play a sport, you don't have to have a job. But then at one point, he's like, all right, you're killing me with this car and gas and food. Like, get a job. So my buddies were flipping burgers and working at retail. And I said, I wonder if I could umpire baseball. So the baseball team at Hayward was having a fall game, and after football practice, I would park in the baseball lot, and I went up, and the umpires were getting dressed in the car, and I said, "Hey, can I do some of these games?" And they're like, "Oh, you can't do these games. You got to start out. There's a clinic Saturday, and there's going to be major league umpires there. You should come to that." So I show up, and Dale was one of the instructors, right? Gary Darling, Mike Winters, and they both said, "Hey, you should think about going to umpire school." So that's what it was in the back of my mind before that I actually went. And then after I got into the minor leagues, I started teaching those clinics with Gail and with Dale and Gary and Mike Winters and Larry Poncino and Ron Barnes and Billy Speck and some of the other AAA guys.
Danny Wickham,
yeah. And so, man, I had and that was part of my education as well on umpiring, is just teaching those clinics and learning. But I got a funny story with Dale. So I was driving across country. My wife's uncle was Ted Tollner. He was at USC, and he got a job. When he got fired from USC, he was the head football coach there. He got a job with the Buffalo Bills as the quarterback coach, and he bounced around the NFL for a long time. But so Tina's cousin, who's coach's son, him and I drove the car back to Buffalo from LA, and we were stopping and hitting ball games, which was pretty cool. And I'm in Cleveland, and Dale's working the plate. Phil Necro's pitching. And I told Bruce, the guy I was with, I said, "Hey, I know that guy. I know the umpire." So like an idiot, between innings, I'm yelling, "Hey, Dale! Dale!"
and this was at the Mistake by the Lake where there was nobody there.
Well, there were 25,000 people there, but you didn't know it.
Right. Yep. They were disguised as empty seats. But
Yeah.
Dale came over and bought me a baseball. It was very nice. He's probably saying, "Shut up, you idiot. I'm trying to." Negro throwing knuckleballs, and it was a blowout. And so years later, we fast forward. I'm working first base in Cleveland, and Dale's working second. And for some reason, we had switched crews or something, and we were working together. Yelling, "Teddy, Teddy!" Now it's at the new stadium, and I'm like, "Will you shut up? Gonna know my name now." And so I went over to Dale. He's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "Some idiot's up in the stands yelling at me." He goes, "Yeah, I hate when people do that." We came full circle.
Full circle. And just to button up the boxing thing, one of the funniest stories was at our annual retreat in January in Scottsdale, and we have our physicals and everything. And before you go into the doctor, there's a helper there with the medical staff that's just asking questions before you go in. And they ask this and that and this and that, and they ask you, "Have you ever had any concussions?" Most guys, "Yeah, I've had one or none, or I've had three or whatever." So then Teddy sits and tell him what happened, Teddy, when you walk in, and the guy goes through the questions, and then he said, "Yes." And, "Well, how many have you had any concussions?" He said, "Yes." And tell him what you said.
Yes, a 25.
Yeah, I have 25 concussions, and the guy kind of eyes got big and said, I got to go get the doctor."
He dropped his clipboard, if you remember.
Well, Ted, I got a question for you. Why did you retire?
This is kind of the vocation that I have now. I had started moving toward ministry. And around 2003, we started an umpire ministry called CFC, Calling for Christ. And I felt like God was moving me into that, into the ministry world, and the time was right. So he was preparing me for that. And then it was circumstances. When you saw 10 of us retire after the 2022 season, part of that was the structuring of our pension, and you could take a buyout. And as the feds kept raising the rates, and I'm not a money guy, so I wasn't even paying attention to this. I had planned on working maybe 2 more years. And just the way that our buyout was structured, they said, your buyout is going to drop as the rates raise. So they said, if you're going to work 2 more years, you'd basically be working for, for free.
You're losing money.
You're losing the money. So, that's when I took a good look at it. And one of the guys that retired, Greg Gibson, had really looked into it. And he said, "Ted, you should really look into this." So then I started talking to people that are lot smarter than me, and we figured out this would be the best decision for me, and I'm happy I did. I don't look back at it. I don't miss being on the field. I miss being like this, sitting around laughing, playing cards, drinking coffee. It's a great job sometimes when you're working at your game's at 7 o'clock and it's noon, you're like, hey, I got a few hours, and it's so good to sit and have conversations and have a long lunch. And I miss that a little bit. But it's also giving back a little bit, working with the minor league kids, getting in the locker room, teaching them, some benefit of my experience. And so I have no regrets. I'm glad I did.
You said that God was calling you, and you heard it when he said you're going to lose money if you don't get.
That was Doug Harvey, by the way, that was telling you that. So.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That was.
And then
Ted, you mean you didn't enjoy not having Lou Piniella come out and blowing smoke everywhere and calling you every four-letter name? You don't miss that? I mean,
no. Wait, the funny thing is, I'm sure as Jimmy and Dale, I'm sure you've heard from them. Lou was great because, and Bobby Cox too. I mean, they would blow their stack and do their thing, but then the next day it was like nothing happened.
There was worse guys than those guys.
Yeah, those days are kind of. Now the people are. They don't go out and get as excited, but also there's not those personalities and relationships. It's more of a professional thing. Whereas, I remember, Tim McClellan, working with him, he threw out Bobby Cox, and we went to have a steak dinner after, and he had found out where we were going, and there was a bottle of wine waiting at the table.
Right.
And those things wouldn't happen. And in Arizona one day, Tony Randazzo threw him out, and I went down to use the bathroom between innings, and Bobby's sitting there smoking a cigar, looking at his lineup card, and he's, "Hey, Teddy," he goes, "Hey, tell Tony sorry about that. I said to stick up for my pitcher." And those days are kind of over, but that was old school managers.
Well, I believe it was Dallas Green when he managed the Yankees at one time, and I had a Fairfield third and went against him, and he came out and you remember the old Yankee Stadium, for drainage, there was a little bit of a slope, and so he was on the high side of that slope, and he was a big guy anyway. So he was like I ejected him, everything, and there was a note after we got off the field. There's a handwritten note from him saying something to the effect of that's the difference between 56-year-old eyes and 36-year-old eyes. You got that right, and I mean. Stuff like that I'm not saying it doesn't happen now, but it's just a different. It's a different breed. It's a different kind of thing, analytics and numbers and just raw baseball people those are two kind of different breeds, and that's where the game is now.
The appreciation for the game anymore on the field is totally changed. It's, the interaction between the umpires and the players and the managers is at least when I walked off, was starting to change anyway, because they didn't want us to have a personality.
Right.
They wanted us to, and Bob had it pretty much right. They wanted us to be robots. They wanted us not to be seen. And I can remember a supervisor going after a guy on my crew, and he did it in front of the crew. And I asked him politely if I could talk to him outside the locker room. And I said, I don't think it's fair that you take somebody to task in front of the whole crew. I think you should ask. And I said, all the guy was doing was having a good time on the field. He was enjoying himself, and the fans were enjoying it. And to take somebody to task for that, I think to this day is wrong. I think we should have personality.
Absolutely.
And I think fans miss it, actually. I think the umpires are easier targets now than they ever have been.
Well, we had Junior on the show. We had Junior Griffey on, and he said, he was getting reamed by the media because he was having a good time out there. And they're like, "Oh, you're not trying." And I'm like, "Really? This guy's not trying?" And he even said, "Hey, I'm going to have fun. I'm a big kid out there." And that's what the game is missing. A lot of these guys, we don't have David Ortiz anymore. Big Papi. This guy was larger than life in Boston. Still is. It's just, the game has changed so much. It's getting to the point where it's not as exciting for me anymore as it used to be.
You talk about Griffey Jr. When he played with joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think a lot of times when we umpired with joy.
I agree.
Yeah, and the joy is kind of getting sucked out of the game
Yep.
because of the intensity, because of the amount of money that's involved. I mean, spring training. I was telling the young kids the story the other day about just spring training was just fun. All right. I mean, you had guys running in the outfield for Pete's sake. I mean, nobody would dare say a word to the umpire. They knew we were all trying to figure it out. I mean, these guys, they wanted to get a few innings in and go have some beer. And now
Yeah.
spring training is almost as intense as a September baseball game.
Absolutely. Jimmy,
And,
can you
yeah.
tell the story? Do you want to tell the story about what Junior said to you that one spring training? Can we bring that up, or do you rather not?
Oh, the time he ran past me and
Yeah.
I had quit
Yeah.
smoking and
Yeah, exactly.
I had gained a few pounds and Junior ran past. I was at second base and whoever I was working with, I was probably standing there probably BSing with, and Junior runs by. He goes, "Hi, Jimmy." He says, "Man, there's two of you in there." I weighed 250 pounds at that time and I quit smoking and I gained weight, like the Pillsbury Doughboy, for God's sakes. And all I could do was just laugh. I mean, and
Well,
he had that Junior smile. If you think right now, all you can see is the Junior smile, right? That's
Yeah.
all you can see.
absolutely.
And that those days are over to a certain degree, I believe. I can't speak right now. I'm the longest retired out of all of us, so um, but I do miss the camaraderie with my partners immensely, immensely. I love talking to you guys. You know that. I don't miss 5 o'clock. That
Yeah.
was, I getting down to the lobby at 5. I don't miss the plane flights. I don't miss the hotels. But I do miss the friends I met in the game, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. And I miss the guys I really liked umpiring with.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I miss showing up on a Saturday night at a really good restaurant that's packed and have no reservation. Just say we're the umpires. And they put you at a table. I
Oh, you
say
mean
that now.
San
And they go, yeah,
Francisco?
whatever. It'll be 45 minutes.
Hey, that reminds me of a story if I could tell really quick with
Sure.
Durwood Merrill that Dale worked with for so long. We were working a game, and he said, "Come on, Teddy, let's go get some waffles before the game. I need waffles before I work the plate." We went to a restaurant, and the line's out the door, and I walk up, and the lady said, "It's going to be an hour wait." And Durwood goes, "Oh, we'll see about that. I'll handle it, Teddy." And he walks up and he said to the lady, "We're the umpires. We're working the Rangers game. I got to get some waffles before I work the plate." She said, "Oh, that's wonderful, sir. It's going to be about an hour wait."
Well, he used to with Rocky and Durwood and I, and we get on a plane and we barely getting our stuff in the overhead bin. And he's already the whole first class knew that we were the umpires, right? I mean, he would say that, and so we're going to a flight, and Rocky goes, "For God's sake, Durwood, do not tell everybody what we're doing, okay, or who we are, right?" He goes, "I won't say a word, Rock, I will not say a word." And so we get on there and we sit down, and people are boarding, and it's kind of quiet. And he goes, "Rocky, what time do we have to be at Yankee Stadium tonight?" And so he goes, "Durwood, I said don't. I didn't tell him what we did."
And that was also, we would get recognized, and you'd talk to fans, and they seemed to love it. Now you would hide your head because if a fan found out you were an umpire, he might come after you. I mean, it's
Yeah.
and you never know how with now the gambling's come in.
And that's a big part of it. That's a big part. That's why I think that's one of the main reasons I think the ABS thing is being pushed and stuff is where, and this, Teddy, from day one at umpire school, gambling was the worst thing you could do. The absolute worst thing you could do in baseball. More than drugs, more than, beating your spouse, it was gambling, right? Now they have partnered with them. They're showing odds on the screen. The announcers are talking about it and this and that. And with the proliferation, that was good, Dale. And I haven't been drinking yet. The yet the the people betting on the couch or whatever, and now this pitch that according to the ridiculous strike zone on the screen or whatever, that's just off the line and a strike is called, and they're losing. I mean, people don't even watch games for the games; they're watching it for the the player that their fantasy league or whatever. it's just I mean it's so and then like you said, Teddy, if somebody comes up, you're almost afraid to say who you are, and if you do, they'll get on their phone, and look at your scorecard from last play game or whatever. I mean it's really a different, it's just a different time, and I guess that makes us sound like old fogies, maybe, I don't know, but it seems
it's
like
like
it's lost a little luster.
it's like the old adage. It's not about the money. When they say that, it's always
It's
about the
always
money.
about the
It's always about
Absolutely.
the money. So, hey Teddy, real quick, I know your baseball life has been a great fulfillment, but obviously you're playing on another team right now. And why don't can you just back us up a little bit on your growth up to your ministry right now, and where did you start, and how did that idea, that light bulb come on, and all of a sudden, because I know people probably don't know this, but I believe you have a PhD in theology, and
Correct. Yeah.
you're actually Dr. Ted Barrett. And a lot of people don't know that. Dr. Ted, we also call him the Rev. But how did God play a part? I guess is the easiest way to ask it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you asking. Again, going back to my Cal State Hayward playing football, I had grown up in the church, but when I moved to California and really got unplugged when I was in high school, and when I was at Hayward, I would go to chapel more out of good luck, before the game. And the chaplain said, "Hey, let me buy you lunch." And I said, "Man, you want to buy me lunch? I'm in. Let's go." But then we started doing a Bible study together, and it kind of reignited, what I had learned when I was younger. And uh, as I was boxing, I thought, my next step was probably going to be to go in the ministry, and I don't know what that looks like, maybe in the mission field or. And then umpiring kind of came along, and just the three of us went to umpire school, and we weren't stupid enough to think we were going to make the big leagues, right? The odds were so long. It was just like, I'm going to ride this out as far as I can,
Yep.
but I'm probably not getting to the big leagues. Why would I be the one guy out of my class, right? And so I kind of made this deal with God, as I'm sure he was laughing at me. I'll try this, and if it doesn't work out, which it probably won't, then I'll go into ministry. And then I just kept rolling along and got to the big leagues. But there was a point where, he didn't take that calling off my life. And so I misreading it, thought he wanted me to leave the game. And so I just surrendered to that. But I was like, all right, God, I'll leave the game, but I'm doing this under protest. This is a dirty trick because you put me in the big leagues and now you're calling me out. I beat all these odds and beat out a lot of great umpires, and now you're calling me out of this. And he's like, you're my sweet, lovable idiot child. But because I placed you there for a reason, to do ministry. And I thought, okay, that's great. So, but how do I do that? And you guys know me, and I say this very humbly. I always felt like umpires were my flock. Guys that I've worked with. We started doing a Bible study retreat in 2003. This is going to be our 23rd year doing that, which was really cool. We do Bible study. We do some prayer calls during the week, a minor league call, a big league call. And now that I've retired, I've kind of passed that on to other guys. But I've been blessed enough to do a lot of weddings. I've done a lot of weddings of major league and minor league guys. Some funerals, as you guys have seen, with Coop and Wally and Chuck, and just an honor and a blessing that people have trusted me to do that. And so it's been as much fulfillment as I had out of my career. I take as much fulfillment out of that, of being just kind of a resident pastor, praying at the union meetings, praying for guys as for their families, for their children, for their ailing parents, and just being there. And I think there's something to be said for a guy that's either been through it or is going through it. That I think you become more of an effective minister, because I know exactly what a guy was feeling, when he said, "Hey, I haven't been home in a long time and I miss my kids." And I'm like, "Yeah, me too. But hey, let's get through this together." So,
Yep.
Well, one thing about Ted,
we did a lot of talking about that stuff back in the day, you and I. I can remember, we worked together even when we would just call each other out of the blue. That
Yeah.
was one of always our main concern was being away from home and how do you deal with it. And, a lot of people don't know that we trust each other in that too. And we talk to each other a lot about that.
Yeah.
And
You
people
you
don't
ministered
realize that.
you ministered to me, Jimmy. I know you know that, but you really ministered to me on as I watched you raise your children. And you can do that in this job. You can have a successful marriage. You can be a father. And you warned me that it's really difficult, but I was able to navigate that through you and others on how that it can be done. So, and now I'm trying to pass that on. What you helped me with, I pass that on to younger guys.
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
this is my first time meeting Ted, and right away you have a soothing voice, Ted. You make a great minister because you know, you're very empathetic to people, and that you can see that in the way you talk. And I'm sure you're like that as an umpire too, with Dale and Jimmy. You're kind of like a calming influence with all the chaos going on the field.
I appreciate that, but I do have a soothing voice, but I don't have a DJ voice like
well,
Dale.
you certainly don't.
Yes. You know what? If you think of the three of us, actually, if you take a look and you listen to the three of us, we actually sounded like this on the field.
Yeah.
It was very rarely there was a lot of out of the three of us. I can say I had my red ass days, but you know what? The majority of the time was if I had a conflict and I've watched these two guys work, and that's the way they worked also. It was a talking. There was very rarely a screaming match back and forth. And it's funny you bring that or pick that up, Bob, because I think the three of us, that's one of the traits we always had.
And except none of us had the strike call you had. I mean, come on. That's
Well, that's Jimmy. I mean, come
yeah,
on.
yeah.
I mean, hey, he's the TV star in the group, Dale. Come on.
I was just
Well,
I was
that's
just
true.
I was just overperforming. So
But Teddy, and I can say this about Jimmy too, because I've known both of you guys a long time. But that's one of the things that you give back. You've always, like in spring training, you always had the big party for the minor league guys. And you've always brought them in and let them know, hey, I'm a big league guy. Here's some other big league guys, but you know what? We came from where you're at, and we understand that. We don't forget it, and I think that's so important. That's one thing. I know that I just told myself, do not forget where you came from.
Right.
And it's really easy to do that at times when you get all this stuff and, whatever. But that you've always, talk about consistency. You've always been consistent with that. And to call you doctor, I mean, my goodness, I've called you a lot of things, Steady, but doctor now, I'm not sure. I mean, you should. That's an honor because most people call me Frickin'. It's Frickin' Dale Scott. I mean, so the doctor is much better, I think.
And Dale cleaned that up, by the way, too.
I appreciate
it. Ted, who did you? What guy, umpire, excuse me, what manager really we know who rubbed Jimmy and Dale the wrong way. What about you? Is there one guy you just got, geez, this guy again?
Yeah. Larry Bowen and I didn't really look eye to eye very often. We talk about even the managers we were talking earlier about the guys that were old school. And listen, I get it. I always understood. And I learned this from Jimmy and Dale too, that, hey, look, they're under a lot of pressure. They've got a job to do. They got to stick up for their players. There's times they'd get run. Jim Evans used to say, hey, if I was a manager, there's times I'd get run.
Right.
Do what you got to do. And we get that. But Larry to me was unfair because,
he just yelled the yell.
He just yelled the yell. Yeah. And,
that's all it was.
And now I'm off the field. I understand he was so intense.
Yeah.
That he just had one speed and he just couldn't dial it down. And that came across a lot of times. So he's a guy I would say if I saw him on the schedule, I didn't look forward to working his games.
I had
Billy Martin.
I had a manager in the minor leagues, Randy Hundley, and I'm sure we all had him at one point or another in our career. And I asked him one night during an argument, I said, "You just don't like umpires, do you?" He goes, "Nope." Turned around and walked away.
Well, he was honest.
He was honest.
Appreciate
He was
that.
honest.
You can't run a guy for being honest.
It was
like
a
that,
one
can you,
word answer. Nope.
Teddy, I know.
Then I ran him because as he was walking away, he called me a cotton picker because he didn't swear. He called me a cotton picker. See you later.
Well, have you ever picked cotton?
Just curious.
Yeah, when he was in the Texas League, he had a off-season gig, right, Jimmy?
Absolutely.
Teddy, I know you and Brian Gorman and I, this is our third year. The band's back together. We got the MLB Network analyst stuff. I just speaking for me, I've really enjoyed doing that. I mean, for me, it's kept the.
I've never been offered a job like this.
Well, I told him not to call you.
I figured there was a barring against me.
But I mean, it's given me a chance to kind of keep up to date on the rules because they've changed so much since I left the field, and also just kind of if it wasn't for that job, I'll be honest with you, I don't sit and watch baseball games. I will in the postseason. I'll watch because I'm praying nothing happens to the umpires. But this is it's a nice way to kind of stay with from a arm's length away, but stay kind of involved and up to date on stuff going on. And you retired a few 5 years or whatever after I did. But do you of course you're also doing the minor league stuff, but do you find that's just kind of a nice way to keep an arm's length away but still be involved in it?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, because it makes you get in the rule book. It makes you keep up on the rules changes. I've had to call some friends, some crew chiefs, and said,
right,
hey, what's the deal with this? And then they'll explain it to me. And you're right. I won't sit down and watch a baseball game. But you had Bob Costas on. This is something I learned doing those showcase games. He's pretty funny. He's pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy listening to him. And then you've got guys like we have Dontrell Willis and Ryan Spilborgs and guys that we had as players. And to listen to them and have to correct them sometimes on their rule interpretations. But I think it's great that they use us because we could be umpire apologists. We're always defending them. And also I never wanted to have to be in a position to criticize an umpire. But in our job, Dale, I find that it's pretty cool that we can say, hey, we don't highlight that the umpire missed the play. We highlight that New York got the play right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm always putting it on the positive.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm just glad they don't ever ask us to be critical, because that's one thing I know none of us could do.
Well, no. And I know I've talked about this in other shows that we had, but the year after I retired, a producer from Fox called, said, "Would you be interested in doing a thing?" And I said, "No, not really," because I couldn't see myself sitting watching a game. Maybe a mistake was made or whatever, but I worked with this guy. All right, I've been in that position many times, and I'm not, I want, like you said, Teddy, I want to, if something happens, I want to educate on what's happening and try to spin it in a positive way. Like when I was working, if I had a play or if somebody had a play that was misunderstood, as we have talked about, that I would say, instead of getting down and saying, okay, why, let's see why maybe this happened, little, positioning, head height, whatever the situation is, and then turn that negative into a positive and move forward instead of dwelling on, oh my God, I kicked that play or whatever. So, it's all how you approach things. And, Javi in the NBA does a great job at that, right. I think, when he does analyst stuff. And so that's the way, I try to approach it, and usually you're able to spin it in a way that maybe they're not quite as pissed off.
Well, I was in the same boat. The only really time I've been offered anything really other than the commercial. And, they asked me point blank, how do you feel about criticizing your, colleagues? And I said, well, that's not going to happen. Well, it was crickets after that too. So,
yeah.
It's, they're not looking to make the umpire right. They're looking to make the umpire look bad, because that's part of the mystique of the umpire genre, so to speak. Because, just going through what I went through and stuff like that, it's, they're not looking to glorify the umpires, believe me. And we all know that. So,
yeah, the headlines don't sell when you're talking about things are going all peachy,
exactly.
The headlines are the stuff that'll grab you. Exactly.
And that's with the football guys, they're not afraid to come out and just say, "Oh yeah, that should have been a penalty," or
Yeah.
"That should have been a
Yeah.
penalty." And they do a great job of educating. I like watching because the football guys will explain stuff, the intricacies of the rule, and I appreciate that. But yeah, they're not afraid to just call it out very clinically. And for me, like you said, Jim, after what you went through, we've all gone through, and we know what the guy feels, and so I just empathize with him, and he doesn't need me on TV saying that he missed it, but because he knows it, and he's going to watch the replay. And but like you said, Dale, this is the way it's set up, and I always try to remind guys that this is theater, right? This is entertainment at the end of the day, and sometimes we wear the black hat.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd be a fool if we were doing an analyst game where it's an obvious miss, catch, no catch, to say that he got it right or whatever. But what you do or try to do is say, look at the angle he had, or look at this or this or that, or look, just throw. He's set up for the guy to throw it there on that tag play, but guess what? It's a bad throw, so now you got to change. Maybe you get blocked out or whatever. Just trying to understand that it's just not that cut and dry sometimes.
You guys do a really good job at that, though, because that guy's sitting in his armchair at home watching with the remote control in his hand is getting some idea of what's going on through what you guys do. And, thank God we have something like that, because otherwise we rely on the announcers, and some of them are not very kind.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we were talking about this, and we're going to go to Game 6 of the '04 World Series, and this was the thing that really impressed me about Joe West. It was the Alex Rodriguez Happy McSlappy out of Bronson Oriole's hand, and Joe West did call timeout, and I think Randy Marsh was at first base. Like you were saying on angles, Dale, he was blocked on the play. He couldn't see the play, because he was writing back and he didn't see the arm motion.
Right.
And Joe West called timeout, and the guys in the booth were going ballistic. They got to change this call. A-Rod was wrong, and they got it right. But again, Randy was blocked, and they called, to have backup come in. And of course, it was a pivotal game. I mean, it's the World Series, so
that was an LCS.
Or the ALCS. Yeah. Thank you, Dale. Old age.
Because I had the World Series that year, and we didn't go 6 games, or otherwise I missed 2 of them.
I had that LCS.
I know you were at third base, Jimmy.
I was there. So it was, and I've said, and as long as anybody ever asked me or cares to listen, that was the most intense baseball series I've ever been through.
Oh, I bet.
Bar none. Not even close.
Every game was what, 5-6 hours? And it was you didn't want to leave, because I'm a Red Sox fan, and you're up and you're just like nail biting, and you're white knuckling it for a week or 10 days. And fortunately it came out good for us. And thank you.
I actually thought my name at one time was Rat Bastard. So
that'll go with frickin'.
If you look at the 3 of us and you total up with the World Series that we worked, and we've never worked one together. No, at least I hadn't worked with you guys, but we've worked some amazing postseason events. And
well, Jimmy and I did work together. We worked, which was insane. That was an insane series.
Yeah, what year was that?
2001, the 9/11 series.
Yeah, what a great series. Go 7 games, and
and Dale was at second base when the Gonzo got the hit.
Yes, and I was going to call infield fly, but the infield was in. So
nobody saw your hand go up.
Teddy, we're almost at the end here. I got a question for all of you guys. Who had the better strike call, Dutch Rennert or our own Jimmy Joyce? Teddy?
Oh man, I got to go with Jimmy. We watch. You could hear him. Now they have the mics. We wear the mics on the field, and so they can hear it. Jimmy didn't need a mic, and I can't imagine when you started wearing the mic, Jimmy. They had to be like turning it down and muting it.
Absolutely, lower that volume.
But I tried to emulate myself after Jimmy calling. I didn't have the voice, but I always did it loud because he did. I always hustled up to the 45-foot line because Jimmy did, and so that was I modeled a lot of my game after Jimmy.
the one Tommy Hallion strike three.
Yes.
My back
Yes.
hurts every time I
Yeah.
see him. Somebody
It
out in
looks like
strike
a
three.
pretzel.
Oh my goodness! It's like I don't know how you do that, and I don't know how you walk off the field without
Oh,
I swear to God, when he did that, I thought, he has to have a hernia. Unbelievable. He looks like a pretzel, and all of a sudden just go, oh God,
Yeah,
yes. Oh,
I
ow,
start aching.
ow.
When the guys do the splits at first base and they're a first baseman, I'm just like, geez, every guy in America's going, oh, that hurts, you know,
yes.
or these gymnasts on the parallel bars or whatever,
Yeah,
the whatever the hell.
Balance beam.
balance beam.
Thank you. I mean, these girls go down and they're like, spread late, and I'm like, Jesus Christ,
Hey,
how do
hey,
they do
hey,
that?
this is
Jimmy,
PG.
it was, yes, I know we have a reverend here. They're in a position. How's that? Is that better?
There you go.
J-
But, it's amazing that what the human body can do, though. The gymnasts are, unbelievable what they can do, and umpires too. I mean, sometimes you got to be an acrobat behind the plate or at first base, and you're
Yeah, but he
dodging the
defies
ball in the
logic.
glove.
Hallion strike three defies logic. How you can continually do that. I mean, if he had a pitching duel, you would be in traction by the time that thing was over. I mean, all right. Well,
Like,
that's a good way to end in traction.
Yeah,
interaction.
exactly.
Ted, we really appreciate you having us on. We want to have you back on again. This was awesome. I mean,
This is just the tip of the iceberg right here.
and he gave a whole new insight on religion and baseball. I know it's popular with a lot of players, but most fans, they want to hear the four-letter words, and a lot of times you hear it when you're close to the field, and it's a breath of fresh air to have you on. You're
Well,
well
next time,
respected.
Well, I
Teddy, next
appreciate it.
time I want you to, when you come on, I want you to up your game a little bit and actually be driving when you're doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, we don't want to get into an accident, Dale.
And yeah, let's see if he can see if he can do this and not hit an orange barrel. Hey, the next time though, and I truly mean this, we need you on again and maybe soon because I want to talk about a little bit about the motorcycle days also on who you used to ride with and who you have ridden with. People would find that amazing if
That's
you,
a good tagline there, Jimmy.
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
We could also maybe have just a little segment about you and I in Durwood because we have some interesting situations with that, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, that'll be. I look forward to that. That'll be fun.
Ted, I'm going to send you my contact info in case we need to. So if you can send me yours back, that way we get. I'll email you, and we'll have you back on again. This was great. Thank you for doing this. Another voice from the umpire's world.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's a lot of fun, and hope to do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
He's Ted Barrett. He's Jimmy Joyce. He is, well, we know who he is. He's Dale Scott.
Subscribe,
Bob Busser.
subscribe.
Remember, subscribe, everybody. Dale, you tell me that every time. Thank you. Remember, subscribe, and always remember, take the road to the left. You'll never know what you'll find. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.